Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. We have another installment of questions from my friend Sean. And today, Sean is asking about insurance. Specifically, should he get errors and omission insurance or general liability? And how do you go about the process of getting either of those? And what are reasonable rates for the type of insurance that you might want to get? That's an excellent question, Sean. And on this solo episode, we're going to cover just some of the basics around insurance for independent consulting, contracting, freelancing. First things first, do you really need insurance going into your first contract? Professional answer is yes, you should probably have insurance. Insurance is always a good thing because let's discuss what the purpose of insurance is. The reason you have insurance is to mitigate risk. And risk for someone in our position that is a consultant or a freelancer could be big. What if you mess up and what if you mess up royally? You don't want to be on the hook for the damages that could occur if you were to get sued or some sort of lawsuit is brought against you. That's why it's a really good idea to have insurance. Let's talk about the different types of insurance that you probably care about. It's not the exhaustive list of all the types of insurance that you could have, but the ones that you might want to care about. And these are also insurances that are normally required for some larger companies. And this is how I'll lead into the conversation. I did a contract many years ago for Harley Davidson, and I was going through their supplier on ramping. They had a requirement for not just general liability insurance, but professional liability, which includes errors and omissions. And what exactly does that mean? First, you have general liability. General liability doesn't really mean anything for us people working at home in front of a computer because it's meant to cover just general things for a business. If someone gets hurt while on the job at your business, that should be covered. If any property gets damaged uh, in the means of doing business, general liability should cover that as well. There's also things around if you get sued for slander or libel, just general bad things. And then there's also a degree of like medical payments. So if, let's say you had a real business and someone comes in the door and they slip on the floor, they're not an employee of your business, but they get hurt, your general liability would cover things like that. Now, that doesn't really mean anything to us. And it's not typically a thing that we care about, but it's usually something that a lot of larger companies will require you to have just in case. The second type of insurance, which is professional liability, and this is errors and omissions insurance. This is the one you care about and the one that you should probably have all the time. This covers you in a lot of different cases. Specifically, if you screw up, if you screw up on purpose or you screw up accidentally, and the business has a legitimate claim that you caused damages to the business because of your work. This is where you can come back and say, all right, I have errors and omissions insurance to cover the damages here. And it could be for a couple of different things, like negligence. That means you just provided bad advice. You did the wrong thing. That stuff happens. That's why you have insurance. Sometimes you make a mistake and it costs the business money. So maybe you wrote a job that accidentally overcharged a bunch of customers, or you wrote a job that undercharged customers. That could be claimed under errors and omissions. Any mistake you make, it covers legal fees. Specifically in my professional liability insurance, they give me a packet, and on the first page, it says up at the top, if you are in the case of ever being sued, here's the phone number to call. Like, we will take care of it for you. Just call this phone number. And that's really useful to have, especially because a lot of us don't have lawyers on retainer. And that's not something I advise for anyway. But if you need help and you call the insurance company is in the best position to look after your needs, because ultimately, if it comes down to a settlement or a judgment, it's the insurance that's going to pay because you're paying for the insurance. Now, let's go back to my Harley Davidson example where I was being required to have both these types of insurance. And they were also asking for workers' comp insurance, which is another type that someone might ask you for. I was able to go back to Harley Davidson and said, this is kind of a dumb insurance for me to carry. I'm not going to do it. And it was specifically because I'm an employee of one in my business. Specifically, if I was getting hurt because of doing something on the job, I'm probably not going to pay myself workers' comp for my injury. I'm just going to take the time loss. That was good for them. They were fine dropping the workers' comp insurance claim, but they were still stringent on the general liability and professional liability. They wanted $1 million of general liability insurance, which sounds like a crazy big number, but it's okay. We're going to keep talking about this. And then they wanted maybe $3 million of professional liability. I was able to go back and say, look, me having $3 million of professional liability is not probably going to happen because it's an outrageous expense for the type of work that I do. There's no task that I'm doing on the project that would accidentally cause $3 million worth of damage. I don't know. Maybe it could happen, but making a claim that $1 million of professional liability was more suitable for the position I was coming into was perfectly reasonable. So I have that. Actually, I have $2 million of professional liability. And I pay for both of them every year. I just keep renewing the policy. And this kind of leads on to everyone's next question is, how much does that cost? Well, in the grand scheme of things, I pay about $400 a year for general liability. Now, that's just an estimate because I don't really look at the numbers anymore. I get the invoice, I pay the invoice. I don't really think about it. Professional liability is still around $450 to $500 a year for having that coverage. And it's really nice to know that I just have all that protection around myself and my business in case of something were to happen. So if we take the Harley Davidson example and we move forward a little bit, I do have a couple times where I have been very thankful to have had the insurance. And there's one client in particular that I wrote a post on this. I call it Stockholm Clients, where I had a client that was amazing. Amazing. I love this client to death. And they loved me, which is a great relationship to have. And overnight, this relationship soured because I was taking on more tasks. I was working on a large project for him, and the project was not going in the direction that we all wanted it to go. And against my better judgment and recommendations, they ended up going live with a product that was not meant to go live. It needed another couple of weeks of testing and fine-tuning some of the aspects of it. But the client was insistent that we go live with the project. And I'm here to do what the client wants. So we went live with the project. It was a complete disaster, and that's a conversation for a whole nother time. But we went live with the project, and I ended up spending 3 or 4 weeks just working 12 to 15-hour days, just trying to fix this mess and get this application back on track. And that's after a lot of data got just kind of screwed up in the process. And again, it was my fault because I wrote the application, but I had also advised that the application wasn't ready to go live. So a lot of the risk fell onto the client to go live with this, and they approved everything. So we went live with this. It all got screwed up. I fixed it the best I could. I decided along the way that this was not a relationship I wanted to continue anymore. So per my contract, which we've talked about in other episodes, I started the process of telling the client, I'm no longer going to work for you. I will help you through a transition period to another provider, but I'm done. I'm getting out. For the next couple of weeks, I didn't sleep very well. I was very stressed out about the possibility of being sued because there was some damage done. And I fixed the damage. Like, I didn't leave them in a bad place. I took care of everything that went wrong. But you still get this feeling in the back of your head, like, oh, they might come back and sue. And the person in charge of this particular project, I wouldn't have put it past them to start the lawyer process. Like, they were that type of person. Thankfully, that never came down to a lawsuit. I never got a call about it ever again. And I haven't heard from that client in 5-6 years. It all ended well. But this is one of those cases where I was stressed, but I felt protected because I had the contract in the place. And the contract had no warranty. It said, whatever y'all accept is what you get. And if you accept it, it's on you. Also, I had no warranty. Like, there was nothing in there that said, it really doesn't matter how bad Kevin screws up. If you accept it and it goes into production, cool, it's on you. But that doesn't stop someone from issuing a lawsuit. So if they did sue me for damages or whatever they wanted to do, well, I have the insurance and the insurance-backed lawyers to come to my aid and help me through these cases. Now, last question, and we'll wrap this up, is how do you get these various insurances, especially if you're someone out there doing technical consulting? I recommend the provider I used, and it's a broker. It's techinsurance.com. I'm not affiliated with them. I get no kickback. You just go to techinsurance.com. They have a really good questionnaire about the type of work that you're trying to do and where you live, and they'll find you various quotes. It's no different than buying auto insurance or homeowners insurance or renter's insurance. You just ask a couple questions and they'll tell you who has the best rates. You just go with the one that works best for you. So I have insurance through the Hartford and Hiscox in the United States. They both provide great service. There's a checkup every year to just make sure you're getting the right insurance, but they don't really try to upsell you to anything new. I think the biggest leap was in cybersecurity protection, but for the most part, the important stuff just got added to the existing policies. I didn't have to go buy additional insurance. So I hope that was helpful for you. Sean, I hope you're listening. That was a great question that I think a lot more people should ask. Take the steps necessary to protect your business, because ultimately it's going to protect your business and your family. And you don't want someone to be able to come in and touch that. But thank you all so much for listening. If you want to continue this particular conversation, you should really come join our Discord at mti.to/Discord. That's a short link that gets you in the community. And we could talk about this a little bit deeper. Not just myself, but the entire multi-threaded income community is there for you to pitch ideas off of or to get your questions answered. We would love to help. But until next time, everyone, take care, and I'll see you in a week. You've been listening to the Multi-Threaded Income Podcast. I really hope that this podcast has been useful for you. If it has, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget, the conversation doesn't stop here. Join us on our Discord at mti.to/Discord. I've been your host, Kevin Griffin, and we'll see you next week. Cha-ching!